wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is sponsored by Sacred Living Design, who provide in our retreat the most beautiful essential oil roll-on blends, which have crystal infusions in them as well. So Helen's whole product range is essential oils for the mind, body and spirit. She has room sprays, soy candles with crystals in them, roll-ons, blends, and a whole lot more. So you can jump on and have a look at her at Sacred Living Design on Facebook. But it is beautiful. The product that we use, the actual perfumes, we use as part of our rituals during our retreat to start beautiful sensuality, to start the process of connection with your body. And not only are you doing that with intention, but the blends themselves have been infused with an energy vibration particular to that. So they really do work beautifully. So if you yourself are looking for part of a sensuality or body love routine, her products definitely would be worth checking out. So Sacred Living Design. Now today, Bridget.
Yeah, today we're really going to talk about being comfortable in your body and in your own skin. Because we just know that this is such a vulnerable, weighty topic for so many women around how they feel about their own bodies and their appearance and this thing we call us, our physical form. And, we've touched on this in so many different podcasts about what it means to feel your own pleasure and to find gratitude for who you are. But I just don't think we can do this enough, to really get and start to unpack why it is that we struggle so much with how we look and with not being enough, in that sense. What about you?
100%. I mean, good Lord, that's, I certainly was about to say that's my history, but as I was saying that, I was thinking, isn't that everyone's history in this culture, which is just devastating, particularly when you're looking at raising a daughter in that. I find it such a minefield that, as you know, part of that's been my whole, I suppose, courage and surge to really do it for myself, to own it, because there's no greater exemplification than doing it, right? Than leading that path, so that when she looks around and goes, hang on a minute, what is beauty and sexuality and who am I? That there is a role model there, as opposed to having nothing in front of her except magazines and
media images.
Porn.
In porn, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that is why it is so important. Not only do you do it for yourself and you gain enormous respect, wisdom, gratitude and pleasure within yourself and your life. But if you have other women around you, you are paving a way for them.
Absolutely.
You are a shining light that even just by being near you, they feel that. And I see that even in my community of friends, that whenever I've shifted something, you can see there's that twinkle, that what's going on over there? And it almost gives them permission to start doing that for themselves. And there might be something simple as, one day in that week they're not wearing tracksuit pants and a sweat top. They've decided to put on something they feel really good in. Or, it's a conversation around what is that's going on over there with you. So don't underestimate the value in doing this for yourself, because those ripples are enormous, not just for yourself, but what flows out from that.
I think it's really about bringing awareness to the dialogue that you have with yourself about yourself, because particularly if you have young children and girls around you, that becomes their own inner dialogue too, around, if you're saying, I'm so fat, or even if you're feeling that and you're feeling that sense of inadequacy, and not to put the guilt on, but that this is also going to become in some form theirs too.
Or someone says to you, gee, you look good. What do you say to them? Oh, no, I'm too fat. No, I don't.
Yeah, how comfortable are you with
that? But also, what is the message that's being read by your children watching you in that?
Yeah, to not be comfortable with people admiring you, to not be comfortable with owning beauty.
Yes. Owning beauty is a big one.
Yeah.
Which probably makes me want to start way back there at where does this ideal body image... Now, last week when we were talking with Lael about teenagers and sexuality, she had this great quote around, we view the peak of sexuality as being 19 and hot. So if you're not 19, what does that leave you with?
Yeah, you kind of like
which is just hideous.
over the hill, and
Yeah,
you've got,
that's right.
you don't know where to go.
Totally not true, right?
Yeah.
So that was her whole distinction around, we have this ideal in our society that we've held up as the pinnacle of beauty. This is what beautiful and sexy is.
Yeah. This is the window. This is the age.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you look throughout our human history and culture, there is no one pinnacle for that entire period of time. That in fact, whatever culture and society and part in history it is, has dictated a different set of paradigms that says this is beauty. Which says to you, beauty is no one thing.
No.
Beauty is whatever culture of that particular time and point in history says is beautiful. So you look at the Renaissance period and it's a completely different set of, voluptuousness and curves and probably smaller, perkier breasts. And as opposed to, the 60s when it was stick thin and, rakish, and the noughties when it was huge
and
breasts
the fashions of the times also dictating that too. Like, in the Renaissance it was much more opulent, feminine gowns, and then you've got in the 60s and probably now more shapeless type things that dominate, mainstream fashion.
Yeah, so my point is I really want to highlight to you that beauty is no one set of rules. Beauty itself is not rules. Beauty is a spectrum of infinite beauty. And what I mean by that is there's no start and end to it. There is beauty everywhere you look. There is beauty in every single person that I see. And I think I've said that before, even to you, Bridget, is as I start to own more and more of my own magnificence, I can see it so much clearer in all of the people around me. People, but certainly women.
Yeah.
There is not a single woman that I come in contact with that I don't go, oh, there's just something about you.
Yeah.
And it will be something different. But there is no one set of rules. Your beauty is in equal capacity of beauty to the woman that's next to you. So it's not a comparison, it's just an infinite spectrum.
And I absolutely am identifying so much with all of this, but I think for some women it's going to be a leap, to get this concept, right? Because for, if you're 30, 35, 40, however old you are, you've largely grown up with a set of paradigms around what beauty looks like and around this overwhelming sense of not being enough in some way. Whether that for you, that sense of not being enough is in your physical beauty or where you perceive a lack of physical beauty, or if it's in your achievement or whatever. And so I would really sort of encourage women to start to, the biggest thing for number one is, okay, if you're feeling fat, not good enough, just really hating on your body, who are you comparing yourself to?
So this is it, right?
Because that is the number one.
Yes.
Because if you say that you're not good enough, well then who is good enough?
Yes, because you're comparing to be able to say, I don't measure up.
Yes.
What is it that you're saying you're not measuring up to?
Because there's obviously some ideal, whether you're conscious of it or not, that you're holding up as the perfect body or the perfect person or...
Yes.
And that's just such a great clue.
Which I love, right? Because this is this concept of the perfect person, that we have attributed this set of rules, again, be they achievement, beauty, mothering, whatever it is, to this idea in our head of the perfect person. But do they actually exist? No, they don't. And you look around and you go, okay, hang on a second. So if I'm not measuring up in X, Y, and Z ways, hang on, okay, what's my perfect person I'm saying here? So my perfect person is this mother who has endless capacity to give, who cooks beautiful meals, who provides financially, who's a sex goddess. Who around me is that? Oh, no one.
Yes.
So how about we just start to balance out, okay, this perfect person is a total illusion.
Yeah.
It's not that you're not measuring up to reality. You're not measuring up to a fantasy.
And you're also, this is this whole idea of what we see, right? Like you're also only choosing to see the parts of that person that fit with the label that you've created for that person.
Yes.
So if you've created for that person is this, sex goddess, or is this, incredibly attuned parent who's manages to look beautiful all the time. Well, there is a hell of a lot of stuff that you are not willing yourself to see because that's not convenient to this,
ideal that
story
you're not
that you've created that she has something and you don't have it.
And the thing is, we are all right, Bridget. We are all everything.
Yes.
So you've got to start to look at, so if she's all of these things that you're saying you're not, which of course you are because you couldn't see them in her if
Yes.
you didn't own them in yourself.
Yeah.
But if you're saying for the sake of the ideal person that you are not measuring up in all of these ways, where is what you're saying is, where is the parts that you're not saying about her? So for her to be able to do A, B and C, where is she not doing X, Y and Z
Yes.
that you're actually already doing and
because-
taking for granted because that's why you're choosing not to see it in her?
Yeah, and I mean, this comes back to values, which is a lot of what we work through in our retreats and soon to come in our online program, is this idea of, you are comparing apples and oranges, right? Like, so you're comparing somebody who clearly has a high value on, perhaps if they exercise. It's kind of like that idea. One of my friends was saying that Beyonce just released a line of exercise gear, and she's like, oh, I have to have that stuff. I have to have the Beyonce clothes. And she's like, oh, I don't exercise though.
What?
It's because it's that thing, right? Like the branding, the illusion, you think you want that, and you think that you should somehow compare yourself to that, but your life doesn't in any way demonstrate that you are at all that. Like,
Yeah.
like,
And I love your apples and oranges, right? So you're looking at this woman comparing to your apples her oranges.
yeah.
No. Where are her apples? And compare her apples to your apples,
Yes.
thanks very much.
Yes, if she's spending all of her time, if she's training 6 days a week, of course she's going to look amazing.
Yes.
But if you don't, that's
If
not
you don't
important
want,
to you.
exactly. So if training 6 days a week is not important to you, it's an unrealistic
Absolutely.
version of comparison to start off with. But also in that comparison, the comparison wouldn't be there if you were sitting wholeheartedly and groundedly in your greatest areas of inspiration.
Yeah. Which, and I would add that that's a big, feat, right? Because it
Yes.
doesn't matter who we are, even if we're super inspired and super on mission, it's in our human nature to compare. And there'll be times when we don't do it because we're...
It's interesting that you say that because I'm always trying to fight away the comparison because it's an illusion. Yeah.
No, but it's still part of us. It's still who we are. It's like that same thing, when you get onto a spiritual path or you start to learn, a lot of what I'm doing with learning about human behavior and universal principles, you start to almost feel like, okay, well, I'll disown those parts of myself because they're not the inspired parts.
Yeah.
But the thing is, just like we need to have, our higher mind kind of has all this mission-inspired type intuition activity for us. Our lower mind's also where we need to express and our animal side and our, lower kind of denser parts of ourselves, because we have those too. And so there are going to be times when we compare. There are going to be times where we feel not enough. Everyone feels like that.
But if we're looking at it on a universal way, the way to use the not enough or the comparison is to look at what is it actually that you're comparing to? So getting really clear on who, even in your head, this perfect person is, and then coming back to what is the message that comparison or not enough is bringing me.
Yeah, totally.
Is that my intuition trying to break through and I'm only paying attention to the negativity? I haven't picked up on the red flags of positivity along the way.
Yeah.
What is the red flag that's saying, I want more of this for myself, or I want to expand here within myself, or I want to look at what is really fueling me, or the fact that you're having a comparison, maybe even when we're talking about body image on body image, is what is it that you're really wanting more of within yourself? So you're not even saying, I want to be like her, but it's a red flag to go, I want more of that for me. Do you think?
And yeah, totally. And I also think it's also worth asking yourself, where before you go into this kind of, and we all know this sort of downward spiral of self-loathing, around not being enough, and that will often be the catalyst for sitting in front of the telly, munching down a bar of chocolate and just wanting to,
because you've given up.
right? There'll also be subconscious reasons why we do these things. Sometimes we might see that as a way to relax. So if we are so busy and we don't let ourselves ever have any downtime, and we're always trying to account for our time, then we will create situations which inadvertently allow us to relax. So we'll get sick, or we'll have this, massive breakdown, in the form of, I'm not good enough, so I'm just going to wallow here on the couch, right? So
doesn't that serve you for what you weren't giving yourself?
Yes. Yeah. So if you won't give it to yourself consciously, sometimes you will give it to yourself subconsciously.
I so love that.
And you will get benefits from that, because what does that allow you to do? It allows you to feel feelings that are there, to express emotion, to allow somebody else to, care for you or give you compliments that you're not willing to give yourself, to lift you up when you're really down. You know, because these are all benefits that we get from beating ourselves up, essentially. So it's not to say that these things is necessarily wrong to do that, but I think often we compare ourselves, like we judge ourselves basically for, oh, I shouldn't feel like that, or, you know, why am I feeling so sad, or why am I not pulling myself together? You know, all of that stuff, all of that big stuff that we think that we shouldn't be. It's all a feedback for us to listen in to what it's trying to tell us and help us get ourselves back into balance. We can't always do it. There'll be times when we just want to be in that space, and that's okay too. It's really, really multi-layered, and there's so much in that, and there's so much in it for us personally in terms of, as I say, why we create it, but also if we're not being critical about the way we're exposing ourselves to the world around us and what we're choosing to see, that will also come in too. You know, if we're watching endless TV or we're watching shows that have these women that are perfect, that's going to start to filter into your awareness, and you'll possibly find yourself comparing yourself to those images. It's like young girls who are so impressionable who read beauty magazines and all they see is beauty is these airbrushed images, and it becomes part of their dialogue around what beauty is, which we've said is so far removed from real life.
Yeah.
You know, you have...
And we're not in a culture or a tribe now where we're used to seeing the spectrum of bodies either.
No.
Nothing is real anymore. So
Or celebrated. So
Yes.
we see the spectrum of bodies in our daily life.
But we don't really, not on a nude sense. Like we
Oh,
see,
sorry, not on a nude sense,
so
no.
we see bodies dressed up or trussed up in a number of different ways. We don't see real bodies.
No.
Like how often do you see other women's breasts, bodies after childbirth?
No.
Like you don't hang out with your tribe of women anymore knowing
We
what reality
let it all
is.
hang out like that.
No.
Yeah.
So it really does start to shift your perspective, so you can start to get really narrow in your thinking that I'm this, but everyone else is that, which again is not reality.
Yeah, and it can be quite confronting to be in a situation where you do allow yourself to see that, because it realises how much of an illusion you've been running, you know, for what, you know, bodies are meant to look like. And, you know, there was this exhibition, I think last year, maybe around vaginas, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, how incredibly different
Yes, they all are.
they all are. But yet, if you've grown up in a culture dominated by porn, you know, then you only know one way. And, you know, that we know that there are a lot of boys now who expect all women to have no pubic hair.
Yes.
Because that's all they know, right? Like, how distorted a view of body image and bodies do we have if that's the only reference point?
Yes, that's exactly right. So this is part of really starting to pull down who this ideal person is.
Yeah.
Is who is this comparison that you're holding up as perfect?
Yeah.
And even if you're saying that that perfect ideal for you exists in someone in your reality, I would highly challenge that it does. But even if you're saying that it does, what is the set of things that they are doing to achieve that or not doing to achieve that? And are you willing to do or not do those things?
Those things, yes.
Because if you're not, then it's about broadening what your version of beauty and sexy and seduction is.
And I would also add too, like because some of you might be listening saying, oh, but yeah, I'm just fat. Like, I don't even need to compare myself to anyone because it's obvious I'm just fat. That's going to come from a belief at some point that manifested in you as a result of maybe something somebody said when you were younger, maybe, you know, a media image you're comparing yourself to. There'll be some point at which that's manifested and that's become your story, you know, a label that you've got on yourself. And that can be so debilitating because you kind of end up in this downward spiral of almost getting so within that story that you have about yourself that you actually can't even if you wanted to, break out of that. You know, and we see this time and time again, like the reason why diets fail. We kind of, it's so hard for people to break out of something that they owned as who they are, that becomes so self-defining. It can be so incredibly challenging to get outside that way of viewing yourself, you know, and some people need a massive catalyst for that kind of change.
Yes.
And
so back on universal laws, like I'm listening to what you're saying now and thinking in my head. So would you come at it from the point of, one, okay, delving into where did that story of I'm fat or unworthy begin?
Yeah.
Two, what are the benefits out of holding on to that story that you have received? So even though it is, in your view, a negative story, it will have served you and your life and your path in numerous ways. So having that belief about yourself has done and created what within you and your life and your choices and your path and your partner and your career and your myriad of other things.
Because the truth is that we never hold on to anything that we're not getting benefits from.
Yes.
Because if we didn't get anything from it, we wouldn't have it anymore.
Yes.
But this is a really hard thing for people to grasp.
So the idea would be to write your list of benefits, how being fat or having the belief system I am fat has served you in your life.
And in every area of life. So you want to look at spiritually, mentally, vocationally. So, whether that's been any benefit in terms of is it pushed you into a more spiritual path because you're wanting to understand more of who you are, perhaps, by holding on to that? Has it helped you in your job in any way? Has it helped you in your finances, in your family relationships, in your social group? Has it allowed you to connect with certain women who also share a similar story, perhaps? And there's fascinating examples of why we hold on to these things. I don't know if I've talked about this in a podcast before, but there's one example of a woman who had a one-night stand. She was really, really overweight, and she came from a family of people who were really overweight. And she'd gotten kind of lost a bit of weight and was feeling fantastic in herself, and she'd gone and had a one-night stand, and she ended up pregnant, and the guy had left her, and she ended up miscarrying. And from that point on, she vowed that she would never be attractive enough to ever be that vulnerable again. So she didn't know this. She had to be facilitated to get to that point, to understand that. And so she put weight back on immediately, and also got to the point where she wanted to be bigger than her whole family because she didn't want to ever be that vulnerable again, and she wanted to almost beat her family in the weight stakes, right?
That is such a profound story.
But most people, we don't know this consciously. We don't know these reasons why we do some of these things.
I often see this, and I've seen it in a lot of clients and women, is this concept of the filter, that the weight around them almost creates a buffer to their vulnerability, that there's a wall up, a protective space between them and the world. And that with that can come a lot of, well, fuck you, this is who I am, kind of protection of that vulnerability. It's that bull in the china shop, And I've totally just lost my train of thought, but that story just highlighted that to me. I'm like, yes, I've seen that so much about what is that weight. Oh, that's what I was going to say. That I see these women so much as there's been some story, like you're talking about, some moment that has said to them, being vulnerable and authentic is not safe for me.
Yeah.
And that from that point on, it's almost like they've unconsciously but consciously chosen to turn down that dial of their light, of their magnificence. And that the process of weight loss is not even so much around controlling the X, Y, and Z of food. It's about owning their magnificence and allowing the world to witness and see them.
Yeah. But they can't do that until they go and break the illusion or neutralise whatever it was that was going on at that moment in time. Because, as long as, in this woman's case, it was obviously the overwhelming perception of pain for her that she never wanted to go back to. No. So to protect herself from feeling that pain again, she put the weight on.
Yeah, of course.
That's her,
so when you're talking about neutralising, just to break it down for everyone, so what you're saying is coming back to that moment of that wounding, let's say, and actually looking at it around getting to the point of gratitude. So this is writing a list of how did that serve me in my life, and neutralising so it's not seen as painful anymore. You can see the pleasure within the pain.
Yes, and it will get you to go back.
The gratitude.
Yeah, and we talk about the fact that in every moment, the universe is always giving you both support and challenge, but often you will only see one. So you'll only see that you're being supported, or you'll only see that you're being challenged. And so you will go back and be looking at, okay, in that situation where I felt like I was being really challenged, who was supporting me? And you'll find it really, really hard to answer because you won't want to, But
this is where facilitation comes in, right? This is coaching. This is, well, we certainly hope to branch into this in our retreats and whatever, but this is the facilitation process of, whilst we're giving you tools and to start really looking at that, sometimes the real crux of it you can't do without help.
And even like I get facilitated on stuff because
me too. It's not like you can't see your own stuff, the wood for the trees, and whatever that saying is. You can't really see your own stuff until someone says, hey.
And also, with this kind of work particularly, like I have all the tools to do it, but actually what happens is you actually make yourself tired, or you'll make yourself need to go to the toilet, or you make yourself really thirsty. Your brain and your mind
finds ways to avoid going there.
Yeah, it's actually incredible. Like I've had moments where I actually feel like I would fall asleep in front of my piece of paper
Yes.
Which just is a massive red flag, right? To say that you really don't want to do this work, but there is so much gold in here if
So
you do.
true.
You know?
Like I even said to you, because we've been talking about money blocks and we're going to do a podcast on that, and I was reading this money book.
Yeah.
And I said to you, I can't even read a page. I read one page and I'm like, can't even stay awake.
That's so funny.
And I literally, so I knew this was what my brain was doing,
Yeah.
right? And I remember saying to you, so I just read one page, I have a nap, I wake up, I read the next page, I have a nap.
Yeah.
And I made myself get through the book
Oh, that's so
one
funny.
page at a time. But that's how intense I have a block to this work
Yeah.
because of how big that wounding is underneath there that I can't even read a page without
Wow.
wanting to sleep.
That's
Like,
so
how intense
powerful.
is that?
It's so intense.
I know. So
And-
this is what we're talking about, is you often find ways not to go there
Yeah.
because it's that pushing out of your comfort zone. It's finding those edges
Yeah.
of where your consciousness or your ego is happy to keep you.
Yeah.
And when you're wanting to extend beyond that, there's a level of pain and push through
Totally.
that you've got to go through.
And, you know, we are inherently pleasure-seeking creatures, us humans. So, and this is why we are so susceptible to the media images, the you know, the chocolate, the here, come and escape to this, because we want to escape pain and feel pleasure. That is how we're wired. But, you know, like I love this quote from Rumi, who said the cure for the pain is in the pain.
yeah,
You know,
it's by going in there.
And the key to your next evolution comes from your pain. But we don't want to feel it. You know, like most people would rather break their leg in 10 places than go to the pain that represents their biggest block in their life. Right? So I just really want to express the fact that, like, we can say all these things about how to do things and how to kind of shift your thinking and awaken your magnificence, but it's a road, right? Like,
Yeah, it is.
and there's so much illusion out there around personal growth or awakening or finding your purpose that suggests that the minute you find your bliss, it'll all be
Well, it's all
smooth sailing.
find your happiness, happy life, happy, happy, happy.
Yeah.
But that's not what the path is.
It's not at all, you know. And if we're talking about consciousness and we're talking about raising our own awareness, what happens is we climb quantums of awareness, right? So you might go through a stage where you're feeling pretty present, feeling pretty grounded, feeling pretty inspired by your life or grateful, and then you're going to go through your next challenge, right? Where you're going to go, oh my God, it's all turning to shit. What's going on with my relationships here? And oh, I'm just hitting these brick walls with my business, or oh, my kids are going off the rails. That's like the sweet spot, right? Like that's the spot where you're trying to break through
It's the
your
path
next
to the next quantum.
to the next leap. So I'd suggest don't get caught up in this idea that if you can just disown parts of yourself and just be grateful all the time or just be one way, that is the answer. The growth is in the challenge, right?
Yeah, it is.
So know that that's part of it too.
Yeah.
But we're here with you on that because we're doing that too, you know, and we share this.
Yeah.
You know, we have random stuff blow up with our kids, and you know, you think you're the worst parent in the world, and you know, you go and get some more tools and you break through that and you go, oh wow, like you have that
I'm killing it.
Yeah.
Before you don't.
Yeah, before you don't again. And our kids are brilliant at that because they are so good at knowing what we need and knowing what they need. And often what they need pushes our buttons so much that you end up with a massive clash.
Yes. All right, so let's bring this full circle back to body image again. So we've just done this huge tangent on...
We have.
But perfect, right, because it's talking about how do you start that process of coming... Well, one, breaking the illusion of the perfect person and then deciding whether you actually value what that perfect person has or does to have that perfect whatever.
Yeah.
And then looking at how do you start the process of gratitude for your own body. So the path to really owning your brand of beauty and sexy is by awakening your light.
Yeah.
Because beauty is infinite. You do not have to look like this person to be beautiful.
No.
To really own your beauty is about finding your magnificence, right? So this is what we've just talked about, equilibrating stories and perfect people and all of that jazz. Now let's bring it full circle around to how do you start the process of loving your body.
And I think loving, you know, what we need to understand is loving is this balance, right, of supporting and challenging ourselves. So loving is not, oh my gosh, I love every part of my body, and until I don't love every single part, you know, and just admire every single part, then I haven't got to self-love. The truth is there's going to be exactly equal parts of ourselves that we like and dislike. you know. And I think as soon as you bring awareness to that, it's like, oh, okay, I know that there's going to be things that I might want to change, but at the same time, look at this part of myself that I really like, you know, that I really enjoy and that I am grateful for. I think also recognizing that there'll always be parts of ourselves that we want to shift and change, but it's not to become attached to that, not to kind of be thinking that you know, I think cosmetic surgery is such a big thing because people think that if they just go and get that part fixed, that then they'll be happy, or that then then their life will be amazing. But the classic story is, as soon as you fix in inverted commas one part, you then notice the other part that you don't like, and it becomes a perpetual cycle. So I would be saying, for the part of yourself that you really label or judge as one way, where in your body is the absolute opposite reflected? Because you are always both. You know, and so if you're saying to yourself that you are like really fat, well, what parts of yourself are thin? And it's going to sound really strange, but, you know, there'll be parts of your body in your physicality that are thin. You know, things like your eyelashes and your fingernails and your veins and your bones and things like that. You can use these things and start to ask yourself those things, and it sounds kind of crazy.
It's almost like building a pros and cons list, isn't it? You start to see the positives and the negatives, the fat and the skinny, the beautiful and the unbeautiful. But there is always, you are the universe reflected.
You're a conservation of both.
Yeah, that's
all
right.
the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, even people who shift physical weight, that weight will go somewhere else. It might go into their mind, right? So they might have a massive amount of the weight of the world now because they've shifted their weight physically. Then they might then feel an enormous amount of responsibility to step up in the world, or to resolve relationships that they were ignoring because the weight provided comfort for those. And so the weight's now in their mind, right? So it's always going somewhere.
It's always shifting and changing form, is to your point, that it's always everywhere.
Yeah.
So the process for gratitude is starting to list what are the things you don't like, and then where are you the opposite within your body, which I love. I love that idea.
And I think also really, you know, everyone has something that is enticing and that's captivating, as you say. Like there's with women, there's something that you just draws you in.
And the more that women find their light, the more that they kind of turn that dial up internally and feel safe and secure for the rest of the world to see that. There is a physical response to that too. So I have literally, and you know, I've talked about where I've done it for myself as well. I've literally seen women all of a sudden do nothing different with their diet, nothing different with their exercise, but they have broken through those layers of beliefs that are holding them back. They've allowed the world to really see them, which is a way of saying, I'm okay the way that I am, and here I am, world. And that their physiology shifts with that. It's like this light that screams out of their pores, or all of a sudden they look years younger or brighter, or that weight that they've held on their hips has all of a sudden just disappeared, but they've done nothing.
And it can even be the simplest things of posture, right? Like, because, you know, when we're kind of, our shoulders are slumped and we're caved in, that's a kind of reflection of where we're at mentally and emotionally.
Yes.
But even, you know, seeing a woman sort of standing open-shouldered.
Which is hard, right? So when you're talking about that, that's opening up that heart space.
Yeah.
Which is a real act of vulnerability. Yes. But we talked about that in seduction, that our heart space is our greatest body magnet as well. So as soon as you open up that chest space, it's a way of, well, one, turning up that light, but two, of saying to that world,
I'm here.
Here I am. And people are going to notice that. So this is the thing too, right? When you start to have your magnificence reflected back to you by someone lingering a little longer, how comfortable are you with that? By someone saying, wow, you're looking great today. Gee, I love your hair. What have you done differently? What do you say to them? Are you accepting of that? Because that's really you talking to you, right? That's the world. Woo, that's the world coming back to you and saying, I see you.
Yeah.
And
can you own it now?
Yeah. And but I would also say take that instead of like, because we can have that propensity to then all of a sudden recoil, can't we? We kind of close up again, our shoulders hunch over again, because that feels, our sexy feels unsafe.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's part of that process is in ownership, is allowing that when you're getting that from the world around you, that's really to take in as appreciation of your brand of beauty and the work that you are doing, because people around you are noticing. Like that is a huge compliment for you to see the work that you are doing within yourself. So how about you just try, thank you.
Thank you. And
Where's
actually,
the gratitude?
yeah, and feeling that, like, as
Yeah.
opposed to wanting to distract from that and move on.
Yes. Because it's
Actually,
very vulnerable.
Yeah.
To look someone in the eye and receive appreciation is a great act of vulnerability. But when we work through the discomfort, it gets easier and easier, and we start to expand further and further because we're owning more and more of that.
I love that.
But it's huge work,
It's
right?
huge. It's really huge.
It's particularly when we grow up in a culture of, we are so pro women being able to wear and do whatever they want to wear and do, but there is this element of, at some level, it's unsafe.
Yeah.
There is this kind of undercurrent of that. So we can tend to be, here I am. Ooh, but not really.
But don't get too close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and, don't get too up yourself either. That whole, I think a lot of us as teenagers grew up with that. You can't be seen. You can be seen a little bit, but not too much because,
Yes.
too much is just not okay.
Yes, exactly. So it's this concept of, which we work on as well, is until your sexy is safe, you'll never what? You'll never do that thing, have that place, go to that, whatever, have that relationship. Because there's such this thing of, until we are really safe and authentic in our beauty, in our innate seduction, which is our feminine, and we're really willing to I guess have the world see that and reflect that back to us, what are you not ever going to do, right? Because this is the reason why we go off on these tangents and we do this huge health kick and we do this huge thing and we da-da-da, and then all of a sudden we hit a point where it's no longer safe for us, and we're
Straight back to
we're back to where we were. Shit, we're back here again.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? We're back here?
And then,
But that's the ownership.
Yeah.
That's the work.
And, I think it's also knowing your patterns where you look for something outside, like you look for that next diet, or you look for that next exercise program, or you look for that next, something that's
to make me whole.
Yeah. But it's actually about doing that inside work to see that you actually are already whole. You don't need anything
Yes.
out there. Like, you don't
And
need
that
to...
it's safe. That it's
Yeah.
safe for you to be you, because this is not, a version of unsafe. If I'm too magnificent, if I'm too beautiful, if I'm too da-da-da-da-da, what will that mean for me? Because we can hold a lot of belief systems around, if I really truly owned who I was, would I no longer have friends? Would I no longer have a partner? No, I don't know, men in the workplace would no longer want to work with me. I don't know. We have all of these underlying belief systems that are not based in reality, but that we've created a story around that prevent us from owning it, the true magnificence of who we are. But in fact, when we break through those and start to equilibrate them, as you're saying, we bring awareness to them, critical thinking to them, we start the process of gratitude of how is this, having this belief serve me, and then come to the point eventually where there's gratitude, but am I willing to still hold on to this, or am I willing to let it go?
Yeah.
And if you're willing to let it go, then it's once you break through that, owning your magnificence is not about seducing and all of a sudden competitiveness all around you.
No.
It is about this light of authenticity that is grounded and vulnerable and I don't even know what the word is, but it's not this heady, egotistic version of self that I think we often have. It's this real grounded, here I am and I'm willing just to connect with you on that level. And people see that and they don't see you as an object. So so here's the thing, right? So you and I are reading the Queen's Code at the moment, and we talk a lot about this concept of objectification. So when people feel overwhelmed by people, which quite often men feel overwhelmed by women, particularly women sitting really deeply in their feminine, because it is overwhelming, right? We talk about this all the time.
And women
the feminine is overwhelming.
Yes, and women feel threatened by women who are deeply in their feminine.
It's true. So this concept of what we feel and we pick up on from women that are really owning their feminine can feel overwhelming to all of our senses. And so we lose our rational control in our brain, and so we have a freak out. So what we generally do is we objectify, we bring that person down to an object to make them manageable within our consciousness. So we go, oh, well, she's just a slut, she's an idiot, she's a da-da-da-da-da. We objectify them, bringing them down to an object to make them in our minds manageable. Which is really interesting, right?
And protect ourselves. If we can give them a label that puts them in a box, then it shields us from that.
Yes. But when we're really being authentic with who we are, if we're really owning that, people don't feel overwhelmed in that process. When you're really able to meet them on that level, see the magnificence in them as much as you're willing to own it in yourself, they feel that. And what you're getting back is more vulnerability and connection, not less.
And they, in fact, really embody the reflection of you, right? Like, they actually just simply become another part of you, reflecting you back to you. And there's, instead of, you know, disconnection between you and that person, there is an inherent sense of connection and knowing that that's simply that person's expression of their form of magnificence, just showing you where you're expressing your form of your magnificence.
And and beyond this, if we're talking about the mirror, which now we've deviated off into, we're going everywhere in this podcast, is that concept of if you're seeing a sexy, attractive, whatever woman, and part of you goes, bitch, slut. Okay, so that's the objectification. All right, hang on a second, brain.
Yeah.
Why am I doing that? Okay, have another look at her. Just linger for an extra second. What is it that I'm deeply wanting that she's reflecting to me that I'm not owning at the moment? Do I want to expand my sexuality? Do I want to own my beauty more? Because she's there and I'm seeing her. I'm objectifying her because it's how I can handle the overwhelming feelings within me at that point in time. That's not who she is. But if we look at that, if we look at critical thinking, we take that as a warning flag. We look again. What is it that I want more of that she's representing to me? How healing could that be?
So much.
That's your sisterhood.
Yeah.
That is your women.
And that is a path to true sisterhood, in a sense, isn't it?
Yes. And you know I'm all about collaboration, not competition.
Yeah.
Because when women collaborate, it is profound.
Yeah.
And we firecracker off of each other. So as soon as one woman starts to awaken something, all of the women around her notice that.
It's almost like, you know, fireflies, you know, to a flame.
It is. But beyond that, we kind of go, I want some of that. And then we start that process within ourselves. But if we can bring consciousness to it, we can do it quicker, faster, and with more healing.
Yes.
Than if we simply stop at, well, she's just a bitch.
Yeah, because that's just that's really just easy to do, isn't it? That's kind of like.
But it stops us. It stops us in our tracks. We don't grow any further if that's where we've got to. But what if you could have more of what she's representing to you? Because that's what she's there for in your world, in your vision that you've noticed. That's what she's there for.
Absolutely.
So breathe that in, do the work, look at the stories, use all of the tools we've talked about in here. So we haven't got hugely emotional, so we may do another podcast on, we may do several on body image because it's massive.
Yeah.
But what we really wanted to do in this podcast was really start to touch on how do you begin that pathway of coming back into gratitude with your body.
Yeah, and I'd really open it up to, you know, if there's a specific thing or a specific question that you have or something that you can't get past, you know, let us know, and maybe we can use that as an example to try and, you know,
and it can be anonymous.
Totally anonymous. Yeah.
We get a lot of private messages on Facebook, which is beautiful and allows us opportunity to really see what you as our tribe are reflecting, and, you know, we really want to help facilitate that. But it also is great that we get questions that then anonymously can fuel us then into the next podcast, because I guarantee if you're going through it, there'll be hundreds of other women that are also going through
There'll be something in your story for everyone.
Yes.
You know, if we're to work through that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if just this sort of scrape on the surface of these body image topics has really awakened something with you, please write it down. Please write it to us so that we can start really starting to delve into this.
And I think that really leads into the next thing as well. We're going to wrap this podcast up in just a moment, but we are about to launch expressions of interest for our first online course.
Woo!
Which is pretty exciting.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, because I've had so many people say, look, I'd love to get to your retreats, but you know, I'm not in Melbourne, I have young children. It's just not doable, right?
Yeah.
And so we thought, okay, well, how can we flip things around so that we can make the content really rich and relevant and accessible, and online is the way.
Yes.
So we're currently working through putting that all together. So we're going to have a link up on Facebook this week for you to register your interest, and we'll be launching that later in the week for people to start getting on board with. So, and it's going to commence, we're looking at late May, June for it to commence, and that we'll be taking a defined number of people just so that we can make sure that we can facilitate everyone in some form within that group.
Yes. Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah,
Bridget.
so am I.
So to connect with you, Bridget, is on suburbansandcastles.com. Your movie coming up is...
Yes, on the 13th of April, it's Future Dreaming. It's going to be an interesting one because I've got a very dynamic panel happening. I love these ones.
Panels.
I love the panels when they get fiery, and I think it's going to. So that's going to be a fun one to do. And to connect with you, Julie,
is thepleasurenutritionist.com. And to connect with us is / Facebook Nourishing the Mother.
Yes.
And we are working on our website. So
Yes.
we really wanted to facilitate this course first. So that's our first step, and then we will have a website that
which will
is
have
fully
all of our
functioning with
resources
everything on
and
it.
books and things that we
yes.
recommend and all that stuff.
Yes, that is coming.
That is coming. So until next week, when we continue to peel back the layers of your mothering journey.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.